There is one trick that can solve global warming, climate change, and all the problems that come with it. The vast majority of economists support this policy. It has both great theoretical and empirical support, and yet people aren't talking about it. By the end of this video, you'll understand what the policy is, how it works, and why it has failed to obtain broad political support. First, let's think about what causes climate change. Carbon emissions, right? We emit carbon, we get the greenhouse gas effect, and heat is trapped onto the earth. Now let's approach this issue somewhat differently. Why do people emit carbon? Your answer is probably something along the lines of it's profitable or it makes them money. But it harms them, right? The people emitting carbon just not care this will damage their future self and their children. Like sure, it sometimes makes sense for someone to step on the gas so they can get to their destination faster, but they don't do that because they'd rather not hit a pole somewhere and die. So again, why emit carbon? Well, the fundamental reason is that you emitting an additional ton of carbon to make an extra $500 would probably not harm you and your children all that much. The world emits 37 billion tons of carbon per year, so how much harm can your emissions really do? Each individual organization and person thinks in this exact way. The additional damage done to them from buying that plane ticket to Argentina is minimal. But it wouldn't be minimal if people simply considered the effect their actions have on others. Your one additional ton of carbon may do minimal harm to you as one person, but it does that same harm to 8 other billion people on the planet. And minimal harm multiplied by 8 billion quickly turns into significant harm. This is called a negative externality, an action that has negative effects on other people that you do not consider. As a result, the free market fails to deliver optimal outcomes. As a matter of fact, this is a pretty common phenomenon across life. You harm others when you smoke cigarettes, you harm others when you fart, and you harm them when you recline your seat back on an airplane. Screw you, Karen. You can't do what you want on a plane with no leg room. But anyway, climate change is the big bad of negative externality since it threatens to have disastrous effects on the entire planet. Thankfully, there is an extremely simple solution to all negative externalities. You tax them. See some guy smoking in public? Is he hurting other people's lungs for each cigarette he smokes? Well, tax the cigarettes and make him pay extra. Then use that money to compensate the people he harms. He'll smoke less because cigarettes will cost more, and the people doing the harm will essentially be compensating the people who they do harm. The same idea works for carbon emissions. Does your company want to emit carbon? Well, now you're going to pay the government an additional $50 for each ton of carbon you emit, a carbon tax. This way, you'll be forced to cut back on emissions which harm others. What this does, in essence, is internalize the negative externality from carbon. You're being forced to consider the damage you do to others. And this policy has huge support from intellectuals around the world, both right and left-wing economics Nobel laureates such as Gary Becker or Paul Krugman, both left-wing and right-wing celebrities such as Mike Bloomberg and Elon Musk. And also, it works. We have tons of evidence showing that carbon taxes lead to a decrease in emissions, which is exactly what you want if you're trying to stop climate change. But as you may have noticed, carbon taxes are not really a topic of national discussion in the United States. In fact, when AOC and other Democrats unveiled their Green New Deal seeking to stop climate change, they did not include a carbon tax. How strange! Well, here's the thing. Despite being an obvious and extremely effective solution to climate change, carbon taxes are unpopular because they make the cost of fighting climate change obvious. They put them right in your face when the cost of fuel increases. This differs from policies that want to tax you to build solar panels or something. You don't ever directly see that you get poor because AOC likes solar energy. But the French very clearly saw increasing prices when Macron wanted to hike the country's fuel tax, a close relative of the carbon tax. That pissed them off a lot and led to the famous yellow vest protests that had protesters burning down random shit in Paris. I mean, it's France, so they probably would have burned shit down regardless, but gives you a good idea that even a country as left-wing as France goes apeshit at the thought of a half-baked carbon tax. So that's it. That's really it. We have the solution to global warming and climate change, but nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole because it makes no effort to hide its drawbacks. The honesty of a carbon tax makes it politically infeasible. This video was made possible with help from the University of Georgia, bringing quality education to Georgia and beyond.